Hi guys, welcome back to Trash It. So we have a very interesting topic today, and we're going to be talking about autism and the stereotype, especially in the African and Nigerian community. But before we start, as you can see, we've got different faces today. The only faces you recognize is myself and my madam over there, as I normally call her. But we've got in the house today 3 mothers, okay? First of all, we've got Lucy, okay? Hi, Lucy. Thanks for coming on the show. Okay, Lucy is very pertinent to this topic because she has a son who has a diagnosis of autism. And again, we have Ethel, okay? Look at her, very serious, always very serious, okay? Ethel. So Ethel is in the corner there as well. Again, Ethel is very, very pertinent to this topic because she has also got a son with autism. And then we have Mrs. Basirat Razak Shuaib, okay? She's the founder of Winford Center, okay, for children and women. And Winford Center is a charity that supports children with developmental disability in Nigeria, okay. She's a board certified cognitive specialist, okay, and she's a doctoral student of inclusive education and a 2020 British Council Elton's Innovation Award finalist. All right.
Wow.
Okay. She has published 2 books, okay, 2 children's picture books on inclusion, one of which has been translated into 3 different international languages. I mean, this lady here is very well decorated, okay, and she has done a lot for the autism community, both in Nigeria and in the UK. So guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. And also, I mean, this is your lived experience that you're about to share with us. So we're not taking this for granted at all. We appreciate you coming on the show. We thank you for coming and sharing your own personal experience with us. So yeah, so thank you very much for agreeing to do this, okay? So first of all, we're gonna dig a little bit into what autism is, because a lot of people do not understand what autism is, hence the negative stereotype about autism, okay? So I'm not going to do anything too complicated, okay? I've just gone into Google and put in autism, and what it brought back was, okay, autism is a complex lifelong developmental disability. It typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skills, their communication, their relationship, and self-regulation, okay? So yeah, that's what autism is. And sometimes people might miss this for a child who is just being naughty, or a child who is just being spoiled, or a child who the parents cannot control. And that's absolutely not the case, okay? So first of all, I'm going to ask, I sort of already know the answer to this, but I'm just going to throw it out there to the 3 panelists we have. Is there a diagnosis for autism whilst the mom is pregnant, right? Is there any way of finding out that, oh, you're pregnant, but your son is, or your daughter is going to have autism? Is there a diagnosis for that?
No.
So, no? No. Okay, no. That's great. We already knew that anyway, that there was no diagnosis. But now let's think about it. If there was a diagnosis for autism, right? Yes. And you know, when you went for the test, because you know they do Down syndrome tests and they test for all sorts of other things. If there was a diagnosis for autism and you were told that actually there's a 100% chance that this child will have autism, would you carry on with the pregnancies as mothers, or would you have said no?
Oh yes.
Yeah?
Yes, I would.
Oh yes.
As a mom, yes, I would have.
You would have.
And I would have, because when they tell you a child is going to have a condition, a life-changing condition, such as autism or Down syndrome, you do not write off the child, because you don't know what the child, would become. You don't know the type of life that child is going to live. And quite frankly, I think it's bad to give up on the child, or even give up on God, right? To say, I'm not going to carry this pregnancy to term because someone already told me that this child, I think it's even, okay that because then you're prepared. You see, you're not caught unawares. So as a mom, I would have. Maybe I'll go through a period of disappointment, but I would have.
Okay. Ethel, what do you think?
Oh yes, I would. I would carry the baby to term, and I would love the baby like the other children. As Basira, yeah, sorry about it. Basira, as she said earlier, that prepares you. It gives you time to research. Now having this baby, everything was fine. Then 1 year, you're hit by changes, so you're caught off guard. But with this one, if you know that the baby is going to have this condition whilst the baby is in the top, you prepare yourself. There are things you put in place. Just that, against what when you don't know, and when baby was okay, baby was talking, then all of a sudden no more eye contact, no speech, nothing. So I think that's even worse.
Right, Lucy, what do you think?
I can honestly say that question has thrown me a bit. Didn't see that coming. So I'm having to dig deep and try and think of what my mindset was. And I'm thinking that because there was such a massive age gap between when I was originally having children, then thought I'd retired, then there was nothing interesting on television and I made another baby. And it turns out. So I was then thinking my mindset when I was in my 20s, having children, as to my mindset in my not so much 20s, in my 40s, having another child. So I'm thinking, probably if that had been told to me maybe when I was, I don't know, 24, 25, that was said to me, didn't know much about it, maybe I would have considered that, thinking I'm going to bring a disabled child into the world. Do I want that for the child? Do I want to do that? I'm still young, I can have more children. I'm thinking maybe I would have considered it. Maybe it's difficult now because you can't prove a double negative.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking, if that had happened a few years ago with this child, probably not. No, I wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have considered. No, I'm going to terminate this pregnancy. No, I wouldn't have considered that. So I think it's where you're at in life.
Do you think that sentiment now, Lucy, is because obviously you've now met your son and you love him, you have that affection towards him. But if it was just a pregnancy you were carrying and they just said, oh, this child is going to have autism, because you probably haven't really felt that connection with him, do you think that would have swayed you a little bit?
I think it might have swayed me in my early 20s.
Early 20s, right.
Now, though it's difficult to say now because you say I know the child, I know him, you know, how I would have felt. Then there's always that possibility that I would think, should I be doing this? Am I? Because one of the thoughts that comes to mind now and again, we have our ups and downs. Myself and my husband, we're going through raising a child with autism, and now and again when he hits you, we're used to it now, sort of. But now and again, when you get a sudden low and it hits you, and we think, oh my God, were we selfish? Why did we bring a child into the world, later on in life? So I'm thinking, if that thought probably would have come to us if they had said, okay, this is what's happening, it's going to be 99.9% autistic. We would have had that conversation, I'm sure, that are we being selfish? Right? Yeah. I'm thinking we probably would have had that conversation, but I'm thinking I probably still would have gone through with the pregnancy. I think if I want to put it on a scale, I think probably maybe at age 24, if there's someone that said that to me, I'm thinking, I've got my whole life ahead of me. Oh my God, I can't do this. Oh, then okay. I probably might have considered termination at that age. Definitely not now.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your honesty, because obviously this is something that you had to weigh, being put on the spot. But my question, because of my research, most things I've come around is, what are the early signs? And are there actually early signs? And if yes, what are the early signs? How would you know?
Yeah.
There are early signs. Let me start. There are early signs. I would normally tell parents, like, if you don't know what you're looking for, you wouldn't know when you have found it. You wouldn't even know when you have missed it. Wow. Okay? So the key is be vigilant, and don't think my child will develop like every other child. We all expect that our children will develop like, the typical, the neurotypical child, and sometimes we just leave things to chance. I think people need to pay a lot more attention. autism in itself, a child with autism shows difficulties in 3 key areas, and they call this the triad of difficulties. And these 3 areas, there are things under it that would help you, like telltale signs. So social imagination, social interaction, and social communication. One of the most common things that you might find is a child not hitting their developmental milestones. And for Kumi and Cecil, who I don't know what the other ladies are, but if you're in England, you know what happens when you have your child. After about 6 months, you have the health officer come and visit you. And then they come with this checklist where they're checking, is the child, are they making eye contact? Do they respond when you call their names? Do they smile back at you? All of those things that they're ticking are things that would help them know on time if the child is hitting his or her developmental milestones. And by the time the child is 2, the 18 months one, that is the one they consider the most critical, because by this time you would expect that if a child is having these difficulties, the signs would already have been there, and it would be in the area of communication. You know, the smallest things. When you call this child's name, do they respond? Do they answer back? Do they communicate with you? We don't expect that, you know, a 2-year-old will be talking at some extra level, but at the level where it is expected of them, can they make single sounds? Can they call, can they follow maybe single instructions? Come, go, sit, stand. You know, those are simple communication signs that they're looking for. Can a child do this? And another thing is the way a child plays. We put a child somewhere and the child, you know, you see a child play with toys. For the average person, you're looking at it like this child's playing fine. But, you know, over time, I've come to learn something about symbolic play, right? Like you see a child playing and the play isn't symbolic. So maybe, for instance, you give a child a set of toys and you notice that repeatedly they only play with that toy in a particular way. For instance, maybe they line up their toys, right? So you give them any toy, they would line it up. So you would notice they're playing with the toys, but how are they playing with the toys? Their imagination is restricted, right? They're not playing in a symbolic way. They're not playing like tea parties. You know how kids will sit down and they're playing mommy and daddy and all of those things, role play. They're not doing all of that. They'll probably just play quietly, and they're not super creative or imaginative in the way that they're playing. And then the last thing is social interaction, the way they interact with other children. So you see some children, they would not play with other children. And please mind the use of words. They may play alongside other children, which means you can have 5 children and a child with autism, and you'd see him or her standing with the other children, but not playing with them. So not engaging with them, not talking to them. So just maybe observing them, or they're playing this way, he's also playing this way, although he's in their company. And so these are the things that you need to look out for early on. And there's also something else, right, that the parents might need to be on the lookout for, which is regression. There's some children, when they're 6 months, they hit their milestones, right? They say the first words, they're communicating, all of these things are happening. And between 6 months and 12 months, they just suddenly lose those skills. So all of those skills that they've previously, and you might think, oh, my child is hitting his or her milestones. All of a sudden, they might just lose some of those skills. Wow. And it might come from something like speech, right? But if you're not on the lookout as a parent, you will miss the signs.
Okay, thank you for that, for me, because I can see Lucy kind of agreeing what you're saying. So this must have been things you probably saw in your son. Do you want to shed light on it? And then I'll go to Ethel.
Yes, that's correct. And because, like many illnesses, especially neurological ones, it's very unique to that child. And that's the one thing with, I say ASD for short, autism spectrum disorder, ASD. With ASD, how it affects each person or each child is very unique. So even though it covers those ranges of the communication, understanding language, social skills, and understanding and perception, how it affects them, it differs from child to child. So they will, like my child was, yes, will say goodbye, he will wave, or he will tend to clap, he will clap. He started doing that, then gradually he stopped doing that, just gradually stopping. And then there was another bit, is the eye contact. And that is to do with the social side of things, which is key, is that human beings we're social animals. And so there's certain things your children do and they pick up, and that's how they learn to speak the language, that's how they navigate the world. That's how we do that, is by socially interacting. And like your baby will stare at you, they stare at you constantly, and they're doing that because they're learning about the world. And because that deficiency with children with autism, they don't have that. So they're not picking up on social cues. And some will pick them up and then they start to lose them. Some children who are autistic, who are verbal, some of them start to speak. Then they begin to gradually lose the ability to speak. I don't think that's as common, but it happens. Usually they don't pick up speech. But some actually pick up speech, then lose it. So the things you look at with social interaction, the things that we think are just subtle, we don't pay any attention to, we just take it for granted. But with autism, you now realize those are actually big milestones they're missing. When your child points at something, even if your child can't speak yet, and that little bit stays. When you have your little baby and they're pointing, maybe there was a sound, or they pointed at something, they're socially interacting with you, meaning, I've seen something, I want to share that information with you. So they point, as either daddy came into the room, but they point. A child with autism doesn't point. They don't point, because that's a social interaction. They don't know that. They don't, because they're not developing a social skill. They don't point. A child that points, we point there's a reason why we only grow up later to say, oh, no, pointing is that's real, don't point. But natural human beings, we point because we want to share information. And not a child won't point. Then they find eye contact very, very difficult, because it's almost too intrusive, because we know we have verbal and non-verbal communication. So with our eyes, it's very important. That's verbal communication. If I'm looking at you, I am actually making a demand. I'm asking you to give me your attention as you're looking at me, because you're telling me you're listening to me. On one training I went to, they were talking about how puppets, how toys don't work well with children with autism. So because if you have a puppet or a doll or something like that, the eyes on there is, if you know, like in a doll, it's remote. There's a remote look that you're 2D looking. So because that does not create a demand, so they can play with it because they can stare at it and there's no demand. But if they're looking at another human being, by me looking at you, that's a demand on you. I'm demanding your social attention. So they find that so difficult, so they avert their eyes. So they look away. It's too much. It's too intense. Those some of the things I noticed with my son. I thought, oh, it was little. Just he started to walk, run around, and I noticed that when he runs up to me, just as he reaches in that social space where you pick him up, as he comes to me, he would just avert his eyes. I thought, oh God, why are you doing that? So those are the early signs I noticed.
Thank you for that.
Very young. Pardon?
Thank you for that, Lucy. I'm just going to quickly go to Ethel, just to wrap this up for us, because obviously, like Lucy has said, different child, different aspects of ASD and what the signs are. So what were the signs for you? How did you figure this out?
Yeah, I had a normal pregnancy, normal delivery, very easy delivery. Everything was all right. He had speech till he was 1. And what I noticed, I know there's propaganda about it. When he took his MMR after 1, that's when I noticed. He lost eye contact. He wouldn't look at you. He wouldn't respond to his name. His speech started, he regressed. Slowly and later, dramatically, he just lost everything. So the health visitor came, and I shared this with her. Oh no, he's just quiet. That's why I want to bring this up. Health visitors don't know everything. They'll tell you, oh, because he's a boy, maybe because he's a boy, maybe he's different from his sisters, because he's the only boy I have, the others are girls. You know what they tend to say, oh, girls are chatterboxes, so they talk.
Yeah.
Because this one is a boy, maybe that's why it's quiet. But as a mom, your gut instinct will tell you that something is wrong. I went to the doctor. Oh no, don't worry. He's just slow. So I said, no, this is not normal. And I was lucky enough to work in a hospital in a pediatric ward. And I had the opportunity to work with a mom with a son who has autism. And I noticed similar traits as my son. So I approached her. I said, please don't get offended. Is there hope in this? Because I was so much in denial. Although I wanted somebody to tell me there was something wrong, I wanted somebody to say it's fine, there's nothing wrong. You know how we are.
Yeah.
She said it's autism and it's gonna get better. And once she told me that, I said, okay, there's hope. So I started to, chase the GPs. I said, no, we need to check what this is. He's lost his speech, eye contact is not there. This sensory overload, the noise will not be too much. You may not even hear it. He will hold his ears and scream. So it was too much. So we had to, but I said, no, I need an occupational therapist because I have that knowledge. So that's the luck I have. I was blessed to have.
Ethel, what age was this when you started to notice all of this? Two. Wow.
2, yeah. Because it's 1 year birthday. I still have the video. He was talking. He was very interactive at his 1 year birthday. He could say grandma, he could say what he wanted. Immediately he took that MMR after 1. I started noticing regression. So, and the professionals may tell you, no, don't worry, relax. As a parent, you have that gut instinct to tell you, this is not normal, and it's good to follow that and chase. And with UK Health, you have to chase and chase and chase. I had to chase to get him diagnosed. I pushed for diagnosis. I didn't wait.
Wow. I mean, that's really interesting because, as you said rightly, you might just think, oh yeah, he's a boy. Yeah, he's probably slower because he's a boy. Oh no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Children are different. But at that, whereas something is wrong, but then you're just trying to
can tell as a mom,
find excuses. So when you eventually got the diagnosis, I mean, Ethel, it's obvious you chased for yours, right?
Oh, I did.
They
hated me. I did.
You did.
Even the Nigerian community hated me. Yeah. They said I'm looking for sickness for my child.
Yeah. So were you in denial? So Lucy, Basira, at any point when you got your diagnosis, were you in denial, or when you started to see all those signs, were you still in denial that, no, this can't be, I bind it in Jesus' name? Because that's what a lot of people do. They start casting and binding and praying. So how did you guys feel when you got that diagnosis?
Shall I start?
Okay, Ethel, yeah, you can start.
Yeah, when I got the diagnosis, when I don't know for my colleagues, when you get it, they get professionals there to give you the box of tissues will be sitting there. They're waiting for you to cry your life out.
Yeah,
I shed a few tears here and there, but I just said, it's okay, it's fine. So where do we go from here? And they were looking at me like, what's wrong with her? We're waiting for her because she's a Black woman. That's how they do. They roll on the floor and all that, but I bet that's what they see all the time. I said, it's okay. How can you help me now? Where do we go from here? So, it's different with other people. My husband could not eat for days. That one was he was finished. Everybody, because I know about autism before, I got the diagnosis. So I think I prepared myself. I was resilient to take the news. So.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories I hear, right, is you can't take away the denial aspect of it. Because what happens when a mom gets a diagnosis of autism, what automatically happens is there's like a death in your mind. When you become pregnant, you have this idea of the child you're going to have, how you're going to raise that child, what the child would possibly become. And then all of a sudden, this mom goes somewhere and they say to you, the child has this diagnosis. And oftentimes when parents receive this, diagnosis, it also comes with a list of things that the child possibly won't be able to do.
Wow.
So negative, like, oh, this child is not going to be able to do this. And you hear this from a lot of parents who have children who are thriving. Like, I was told my child won't be able to do this. I was told my child. So usually parents get, a list of things that come with the diagnosis, like, don't expect that the child will be able to do this, or don't expect that the child will be able to do that. And automatically that starts to make that mom feel like, the child I wanted is dead.
What I thought.
So it's almost like the death of a dream. And it's so difficult for a lot of moms or even dads to go through that feeling that I'm never going to have a child like the one that I imagine. It's such a tough phase to go through. And you find a lot of parents going into denial or even withdrawal at this point, like, no, God forbid. Let me bring this home to Nigeria, because a lot of examples I can give you, I can give you examples in England, and that still won't drive home the point. You see, in Nigeria, we are a religious people. This
Hallelujah.
Oh my goodness. We bind any and everything. Listen, there's a reason God gave us brains. There's a difference between faith and common sense.
Yeah.
God gave us this brain for a reason. As parents, I tell people, you need to know when to draw the line.
The line, yeah.
Your instinct will not lie to you. It's like what I think it was Ethel who said it, or Lucy. Your instinct, you need to trust your instincts. Look, when there's something wrong, you're the first to know, and you may be the last to admit. For instance, you see your child. The child isn't making sounds. They're telling you, boys don't speak on time. Boys don't talk on time. You're looking at the boy, you're looking at other boys around him. They say don't compare kids. Yes, I know you're not meant to compare kids. But look, statistically, there's something called, there's normalization. That's why you have all of this data that helps you understand what should I expect from a child at a certain age. Some children may be above, some children may be below, but at least a child should be, right? So you already know what is expected of a child. And when the child falls short of that by maybe a month, 2 months, your tentacles should be up. What is going wrong? Look, I'd rather be wrong than sorry. And that is what I say to people. So in a country where you have people look down on people who have special needs, they don't only look down on the children, they look down on the parents. Everyone ascribes, don't let me say everyone, because that would be misrepresentation, but there's a lot of bias when it comes to the treatment of children who have special needs and their parents. What do you think parents would do? There's a lot of labeling, right? I posted something a while back about a mom who said, look, I get what you're doing, but I'm not sure I'd let my child be friends with a child, because maybe they just feel it's contagious. And where there's a void, right? Nature abhors a void. Where there's a void, it will get filled up with something anyway. So when people don't understand things, they just make up, all these conjectures in their heads. Like, okay, maybe I contracted, maybe my child will get it from this person, or maybe it's not what I think, maybe I'm overthinking it. And then you have, the community of people around you who are telling you, don't worry. Look, any mom listening to me, worry. Don't worry. It's better to look and find nothing than not to look at all. Let me give you an instance. When my 2-year-old, I'd started this work, right? And I'd come in contact with a lot of information. And so I was looking out for things in my younger son, who is now 4, or he's going to be 5 in August. So when he was turning about 2, I sort of knew what to expect. I wasn't happy with the way his speech was developing. And speech is one of the areas where you can pick up the signs easily. You know, what is the child saying? Communication, so critical. I wasn't happy with the way he was communicating. When it was time for our 18 months check, I said to the doctor, this is it. They were like, okay, maybe we had a pediatrician, and then we had the community health center where we could, and they were like, okay, give it a bit more time. Let's wait until maybe 20 something months. I didn't let them be. I kept going until I got an appointment. The day we went for the appointment, you think it was another child. Like, it was like, why are you just raising false alarm for this child? I was like, no, he doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. But, you know, he didn't tick the boxes, or he didn't give them any reason to tick the boxes for them to ask me to go for further assessment. Yeah. Now, even though in my mind, I still feel like, I think there's something going on with this boy, right? But they didn't give me a chance to. But would that make me stop? It won't. I'd keep, you know, just be on the lookout, because one of the things that help children who have autism is early intervention. Early intervention. So if you don't pick it up on time, or you're in denial, or you're binding, you would have bound 2 years of early intervention. Binding.
Yeah.
There's a place for religion, and I'm not asking people not to trust God. I'm not asking you not to, but do your best and hope to God for the rest.
Yeah.
Right? Do your best.
All right. Thank you very much, Basira. That was very, that was educative as well as informative. So, Lucy, let's go to you quickly. In terms of the acceptance, were you in denial? Were you praying and fasting, dry fasting? What were you doing?
Binding.
Okay. So for me, in terms of my reaction to it, no, I wasn't in denial, because it was me actually chasing the diagnosis. So where I think for my husband, it was the day of the diagnosis, it hit him there, even though we'd sort of seen it coming up, so he was really upset. In my case, I was actually chasing the diagnosis. So the moment to me that I felt it hit me was when I planned to make that decision. You know what, I need to go to the GP and start this process and start and report. So that was when it hit me. I remember I was actually in my office the day. The whole thing was just going around my head. I was thinking about it, all the signs, everything. And then it just hit me. And I got on my desk and I just absolutely broke down in tears. And I wept bitterly. And I remember thinking the last time I wept this bitterly was when my dad died. So when one of the panelists here was talking about that feeling of loss, yes, that it was grief, as I have just lost what I thought I had. From the moment that child is put in your arms, naturally you have a dream. Oh, I've got this child, this and this is what's going to happen. So I think that's where I hit rock bottom. So anything from then on was me, when you're going through the cycles of change, of accepting the change, and the debate between you and God and everything. I went through that cycle of change. So by the time and diagnosis took a year plus. So by the time it got to, I've taken 1 year plus of chasing the diagnosis. By the time it got there, it was more of a relief. Okay, finally, because prior to that, it's difficult when he's exhibiting these behaviors. You're trying to apologize to people, and it's difficult to say, oh, he's probably got autism, that's why he's behaving that way. You can't say that, because it sounds as if, you going out seeking for an illness. But when I got that diagnosis, an apology is always at the tip of my tongue. I'm going anywhere, he runs because he doesn't know anything about personal space. So if he runs into you, I'm like, oh, sorry, he's got autism. Oh, I'm sorry, he's autistic. I can say that. I've done the apology bit, so let me carry on with my chaos while I'm chasing him. But I've done I'm sorry, he's autistic. So for me, it was like, okay, I'm actually free from that. Let me start this journey. How, albeit how painful it is, and from then on is the recovery process. So there's ups and downs. You have your dips, and the moment you cry again, the more, but at least start the process.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Lucy. And I think my own question, because like I said, it takes a village to raise a child, especially us being in the United Kingdom, where there's virtually you rely on family, friends, and everyone to help you, support you, picking up your child, looking after your child, running onto appointments. So how was it that you sort of, not that you needed to tell any member of family to seek validation, but how did you inform family members? Because we know how, I don't want us to be stereotypical, how judgmental people can be, even in the United Kingdom. Not that people in the United Kingdom are supposed to be more advanced with the way they think, but human beings are human beings. So how did you inform family? I'll start with Ethel.
Yeah. Once you have this child diagnosed and everybody realizes, oh, you have an autistic child, you start losing friends. You start losing acquaintances. Your circle becomes so small. Nobody wants to interact with you. Even in church, nobody wants to sit by you. When they have their tics.
Yeah, you got a noisy child.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ethel.
Yeah. When people sit by you and they realize your child has got autism, they go to the toilet and never come back. They change their seat. It got to a stage I had to start laughing because all you can do is just laugh, because a lot of people are on antidepressants because of a child with needs, with autism. So if you don't take care, because I had alopecia, I lost all my hair when he was diagnosed, and during, that initial stage where they run up, my son has run up the house about 4 times. The last one he did, the police had to block our high road and everything. It's very difficult. And when you don't have people to help you, it becomes even worse. And the hardest part of it is that our people, our African people, treat you even worse. They don't want to know. They don't want to associate with you. They gossip. And they say, oh, it's cursed. Oh, the child is cursed. Maybe the family, they have a curse in the family. So what I just did, I had to detach myself from the African community. So when you say it takes a community to raise a child, requote, because it doesn't work like that. In most cases, nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to be your friend. Nobody wants to have, and they treat you so badly, you even lose self-confidence if you're not careful. Yeah, so I don't know, it just go with the flow. If you see nobody wants to associate with you, then move and just deal with your problem yourself. Nobody cares. They don't really care.
Thank you for that, Ethel. I'll go to you, Lucy, because you seem to agree with everything Ethel is saying. What's wrong? Why is it that we're not open-handed as we should be? Because obviously with all the scriptures, be it the Quran, be it the Bible, it said we need to be our brother's keeper. So is that just on the surface?
Well, I think I don't have the same experiences because I'm not been in Nigeria, so I don't know how it would play out there, but I can only imagine and empathize. And maybe I didn't have time for socializing as much. So I think from my perspective is, I see what it does. I know how difficult it is with people. So bring my handbag. Let me keep myself to myself. Because yes, I understand. You go to church, you're disturbing everybody else. Because it's your child. So even though we're relegated to the back of the church, most of the time you spend the time outside because you want other people to hear what's going on because of your child. That is what you will hear. That is him. You want to run back and forth and jump and climb the chair. We have to find little strategies. Like Ada is with headphones because he's very, very fixated on music. He likes music, so maybe the headphones attached to my to Bluetooth in the phone in my bag. So there are different things you do. But yes, you do find out that the isolation is there. I don't know if it's 50-50. Part of you are self-isolating because you don't want to put this burden on anybody else, and then people are also pushing you away. I don't know. I know in my case, even a city hall would say that when you invite me to a party or anywhere else, normally before when my older kids were younger, yes, you just up and go. Now anybody invites me somewhere, You don't have an autistic child. You
Yeah.
sure you want to come? Now, if we come around, he will jump around. What kind of place is your party? Is it like a play area? So I know, okay, yes, he can play around if he's going to be delicate. So you go everywhere you're going with that mindset that where's the exit? I would likely need, take an early exit if my child is coming to disrupt your party. So you're automatically in that, self-isolating mode. Let me not put my problem upon you. So yeah, that's a lovely saying. It takes a village to raise a child, but I think that saying comes from the neurotypical sense to raise this neurotypical child. When there's additional issues, I think that village shrinks.
Narrows quickly. Yeah.
So, Basira, you are in Nigeria at the moment, because I know you used to live in the UK and you are in Nigeria. Nigeria, unfortunately, you can get help that you pay for. And we've seen videos where help have actually abused children. And so you'd be like, okay, this is someone I've brought in to look after my child. And then you, just like Lucy and Ethel said, what is it like explaining to family in Nigeria? Are they supportive, or is it just across the stream? Everyone is just like, no, I don't want to be part of this.
There are two sides. So let me start with the side of the people who don't understand what autism is, or how it manifests. Saying that it takes a village to raise a child is saying, when I'm not there, other people can keep an eye on my kids. And this adage is so crucial for parents who have children with autism, because a lot of children with autism wander. Like they'll just walk away. You will not find them. They've just gone. Without a village, what are you going to do? So to the extent that, people face difficulties in putting together their villages, it's still such an important thing for anyone who has a child with autism in Nigeria. Build your village, find your village. If the people around you don't understand it, get them to understand it. And sometimes it starts from the way you, the mom or the father, portrays this child. Are you willing to stand up? Are you willing to stand tall and say, this is my child? Anywhere he does anything, this is who he is. I will give you the prelude, so explain to you, this is this child, this is what to expect and all of that. But don't look down on him. I won't let you do that. Take the time to educate them, because it's easy. If I see someone who can walk, who has maybe cerebral palsy, it's easy for me to understand what's going on with that child. It's a lot more difficult for people to understand what's going on with a child who has an invisible disability, a neurological condition. And so the way we have been raised, you understand those things, the names we call those people, we just think they'll tell you this autism, this is Oyibo thing, this is, if you beat this child, so there's so many misconceptions that we have been raised with, right? And trying to get people into your village means that you're trying to get them to unlearn all those things that they already knew and relearn new things. And this can be just so difficult. However, no matter how difficult it is still so crucial. It is still so crucial that people find their villages and build their villages, because you need it. Last week, there's a lady, right, Mrs. Akande. Mrs. Akande does a program every Friday where she brings on parents. She runs Patrick's Speech and Language, and she does a program every Friday where she brings on parents of children who are thriving, or even the children themselves, to just, what has your journey been? And last week, there was this couple who came to talk about their experience. Guess what? In the neighborhood where they were living in Bagada, they had neighbors who had a well, right? And there was a day the child was missing. You need to tell your neighbors. You need that village. You need that. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Don't worry, we like our stakeholders when they come to join these meetings. Our stakeholders.
So, I'm still in my meeting, okay? And okay, so this is the reality of my living. So whoever is watching, yes, I'm a mom. And I have 2 kids under the age of 10. So I'm dealing with this alongside any other thing I'm doing. So this is my reality. However, what I would say is they had to tell their community, the people around them, like, we have this child. Please look out for this child. Please close your well. Please do this. If you see him on the road, please call us. If you think because he's got this, you need that. If the child is not severely affected, right, there's some things that you will get away with. But no matter how difficult it is, we still carry the burden of educating people and making them aware of what this is, so that it's easier for affected families to build this village. So if I have a group of 10 people around me who have never heard of autism, they're not affected, they don't know anything, and I have taken the pain to educate them about autism. Guess what? The moment they find themselves in the midst of a parent, or where there's a parent who has autism, because someone has worked on that awareness, it's easier for the parent who's affected to benefit from that knowledge that they already have. But yes, it's difficult to build that village.
Can I just say, because Ethel, I know you mentioned earlier that, you know, that was a very funny one, that when you are in church and some people notice that, okay, your son has got autism, they would do like they're going to the toilet and they never return, right? Now, as a mom, all this sort of stereotype and all this kind of behavior that you get from other parents, who you would have thought that would be more sensible and would be showing more empathy towards your situation. Now, how does that make you feel as a parent, knowing that someone is not inviting your son to the birthday party where the whole class has been invited to? Yeah. They've left your son now just because he's got autism, or they don't want to associate with you or your son. But how does that make you feel as a mom?
Oh, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart as a mom. Breaks it so bad. You just you spend most of your nights crying. You all cried out, then you find a solution and do the parties in your house. Then that's what I've been doing. I've got 4 of them, so there's always party every year in my house. So since nobody's inviting my son, I invite people. So if it's his birthday party, church, because I had to move away from the African church because it was no good for me. Even the pastors, they're preaching, they're God will help, but they don't really show love to the child. You can tell their kids are treating your child differently. So there's no need to, pretend as if everything is okay. So it kills you. You just want to tell them, please just invite him. One birthday party will do. No, but he's never been invited to any birthday party. But thank God he's got sisters. So we're always having parties in my house, and he's got his sisters. So he's 15 now, and he's never been invited to a birthday party.
Wow.
That's really
And he's
sad.
very calm. He's not violent. He's very extremely calm. Yet he's still not gotten an invitation. So that's the reality. That's what we have to face every day.
Yeah. Lucy, what's been your experience? How has this made you feel? Have you experienced anything like that?
Pardon?
Okay. Well, my child's still quite young, so we haven't had that amount of experience, which and then we started very young, and he goes to a special needs school, and I think maybe I might have been able to relate to this better if I'd had him when I had my older children, because then my contemporaries were having kids as well. My contemporaries are not really having children now. So at the time we used to go for children's parties, he wasn't in existence. So maybe if he was around then maybe I'd have noticed, is there a difference between, not getting invited. So children's parties is not something I particularly attend now, because I don't really have friends who have young children, so I can't really relate to that. But you kind of get used to the look. So the look of when you're out there, your child is behaving, and like the totting. There's some groups that are out there that now you're hearing more things about autism friendly and so on. So there was one, I think it was about cinema screenings, and they put something about no totting. I come to this, there'll be no totting there. They usually They come there, they're welcoming. It's a no talk, I think it was a no talk zone or something like that. They said that, so you feel welcome. I tell you, there's because I'm in Kent, so we have this group who they support with direct payments and so on. They work with the local authority called We Are Beings. So every year, well, this year's not going to happen because of lockdown. Yeah. They organize their special superhero party, and so it's for families of people with children with special needs and their siblings, because sometimes their siblings get left out because your parents can't go out with this autistic child. The other children in the family suffer because of that. So they had this party. So I attended for the first time last year, a year ago, July last year. And you know, as I got in my car, well, my little boy and my older daughter was with me. I thought, this is the first time I'm going to an event and I'm not even thinking about it. There's no pre-preparation in my head. So I'm going to a party organized for children with special needs and their siblings and so on. And so, yeah, we're all in that bag. So you can go. So I'm going to go to somewhere. I'm not going to use that word sorry even once.
Wow.
So yes, just that thought. I said, I never had this thoughts in my head when I had my older children. So you just got in the car. But now you're thinking.
This is one of my son's school here in Lagos. They say they're an inclusive school.
They say.
Inclusive school.
That is very pregnant. That statement.
When it was, and they are inclusive to an extent. Okay, so there's no need for me to. There's no need for me to overhype anything. To an extent, they are. However, let me leave the focus that they're not the focus for this. But I signed up to be a volunteer for the fun day, which we eventually didn't have. And as part of the planning committee, I know, you know, there were plans for bouncy castles and music and all of that. And if you have any experience with children who have autism, you would know one of the things that usually happens is that these children also have sensory difficulties. A lot of the time, the children come with sensory difficulties, which means they might not do well in your average play setting, right? Because of the additional sensory needs that they have. And there are even some children who don't have autism, but also have the sensory needs. And I took it upon myself to let them know, like, you know what, we've been planning. I don't know what your database looks like in terms of the children who have autism here or who have additional needs, but I think it would be nice that you have a good sensory play area for children who just might not be able to deal with all of what is going on. For a child who doesn't have special needs, the noise, all of that noise and activity, the buzz is what creates fun for them. And for a child with autism, it might be different. And because people don't know, it's just so difficult for them to integrate this into their plans. So I took it upon myself to let them know, look, I expect this of you. I cannot be on your team and you won't make this type of provision. Just make it there. Let there be a room. If this is too much for any child, or you know who the children who this might be suitable for, let them have this place. So there's a huge space for awareness, letting people know, because it's not, if I wasn't involved in this line of business, I would have struggled to do some of the things I'm doing now. Like, I wouldn't have been able to relate to some of the things I'm able to relate to now. But I have understanding, because now I do this, I know what it is. I have seen people affected. If you don't understand, if I tell you now that this recording is not inclusive, you start to ask me how. Do you understand? You start to ask me how, because you don't know. And what we don't know is so difficult to practice. What we don't know is so difficult to implement. So it's just for awareness, to let people know how to include these children. Because if you take a child who has autism and who has sensory needs to a party where everyone's jumping, all the music is loud, I don't even think you're doing good for that child.
Right. I know, Basirat, I know you mentioned about the school, and Ethel, you talked about the school and all of that. I remember, I know someone who works in a mainstream school, like, you know, a school, right? And they had a child in that school who had autism, right? So the child was there, reception, okay, it was all right, you know, play, learning and all of that. Year one, okay, it was all right, play, learning still to an extent. And then obviously when he started to get to year two, it became quite difficult, okay, because this child could no longer, you know, go along with the other children, not just the normal, okay, you know, he needs a bit more support when it comes to maths or English. It wasn't just that, it was everything else, the behavior and all of that. And this lady sort of spoke to the parents of the child and said, listen, you know, your child has autism, why don't you try a special needs school? And the parents were like, what? No, we're not going to do that. How dare you say that? Our child is you know, is fixed to be in this school just like every other child. Our child doesn't have autism. There's nothing wrong with him. You guys are just being lazy. You can't do your work. And it was a big struggle. So do you guys think that, especially in the African community, is there a difficulty when it comes to that transition where your child has to transition from a mainstream school to a special needs school? Do you think a lot of parents hold back? Because now, even if you hadn't told anyone and you were just keeping it between you and your family, now with that sort of transition, there's a possibility that a lot of people might now find that, oh, so there's something actually wrong with that child. So how have you guys been able to manage that? Ethel, do you want to go first?
Yeah. With my son, he attended mainstream. It was a Catholic school. Yes, as he said, nursery reception was fine because it was easy peasy for them. Nursery year one was all right. When he got to year two, that was when the school started fluffing about. Oh, he did this, and he's the calmest child ever. Yeah. Exactly. And to be fair, some schools don't want to put in the work. They say they're inclusive. Then don't say you're inclusive. If you say you're inclusive, that means you're prepared to support each and every child, you know, based on their level of understanding. They were not willing to. I said, okay. And what they did, every school I applied for to take him out of, to take him there, they would arrange with it. You know, head teachers, they have this alliance. They will go to the school and say, oh no, you can't manage that boy. It was really bad. So we then found a different school, not a church school this time, a council school. And I didn't let them know of it. And I told the head teacher, I said, please do me a favor. Until you accept him, I don't want the old school to know. He said, okay. And he read my statement. He read the school statement when he finally was ready to transition to the new school. What they wrote, he said he couldn't even show me. Yes, because they have failed and they don't want anybody to see their failure. Because if he goes to a different mainstream school and he succeeds there, then they will look bad. So there's so much politics and they use our children for political tools. It's so sad. So he went to a new mainstream school. He finished, he did his year 6. And I said, okay, now that he's a bigger boy, I think a special needs secondary school would do the work now. So I moved him from a mainstream primary school to a special needs school, just a school that is focused on autism. And he's doing exceptionally well. So it can be the other way around. A parent can say, okay, I want a special needs school for my son now. Then when he gets to secondary, it depends on the child. Because I knew he copied a lot when he was younger. So I wanted him to model other children who can, you know, communicate well and all that. But if I took him to a special needs school at that point when he was younger, I knew he wouldn't succeed. He would struggle. So they didn't want to hear that because they failed. So it depends. It's not about the shame. It's not about what people would think. At this point, as a parent, you don't even care anymore what anybody thinks. You just want your child to be okay. You want your child to succeed. You want your child to be to assess the curriculum as well as other children, just like every other child.
Okay, thank you. Lucy, what about you? Because I remember when you were trying to change your son to the school he is now. How did that go? What difficulties did you face?
Yeah, in his case, because we got his diagnosis quite early, because I was on it quite early, so he got diagnosis before he was of school age. So he was still in nursery. So the pathway was, when he was finishing nursery, we started looking for a school because he just got his education health care plan, which they used to call a statement of special needs back in the day. So that's with the local authorities written that up with the psychologists, educational psychologists, and health, that multidisciplinary team put that together, and that's what the local authorities use to place your child in a school. So yeah, so that was the process. So I said yes, I would like my child to go to a special needs school. Then there was the special needs schools where they're especially what they call them Section 42 schools. They're wholly and totally for children with special needs, and there's some general needs schools who would have a special needs attachment to them. So I think as a parent who's accepting of the circumstances is that you know that this is the level of my child's needs, and they should go to a school where their needs can be met. And I felt my child's needs were such that he needed to be in a school with special needs. I didn't feel that he would thrive in a school, either in a mainstream school or a mainstream school that had a specialist unit attached to it. And that's something, realization I came to. My first thought was when I thought, oh, my child's got special needs. Oh yes, when that time comes to primary school, yeah, you go to a straight mainstream primary school with a specialist unit attached to it, because I was probably thinking of that stereotype that, oh, my child would just need a bit of intervention. But I came to realize with time, as I accepted what was going on, that this child would need more intense work with him. He's nonverbal and so on. But saying that, when you're talking about what I found, seeing with other parents and what information I've got and interaction with even Nigerian people who teach in mainstream schools, is what they found is that maybe to do with denial, which I'm not saying all, but with some families, that denial. And so they do not want their children to go to a special needs school. They want their child to remain in the mainstream school. So I think, are they not actually looking at their child's needs? Are you looking at the impact it's having on you as a parent? So you're insisting that your child remains in the mainstream school. The child is not coping at all. They're unable to meet their needs, but the parents are like, dead on, straight, no, my child will be here. Because probably they're thinking that maybe the children would just generally pick up what other children are doing. And they forget that sometimes that autism, as they say, they live in a bubble. So just as your child is not going to catch autism from my child is not going to catch neurotypical from your child. If they do, like, Ethel said, if your child does copy, that's a good thing. They will copy, good, they're at least model behaviors. But more often than not, they tend to not model behaviors because they're in their bubble. So in a special needs school, they know how to go into that bubble, meet them in there, use those techniques to bring them to learn. Whereas some parents have insisted that their children will remain in that school, and the child has just slipped through the net. And those core crucial developmental years have been there with, they're just being battered about. A general needs school can't cope with how many children, 20 or how many children in their class do not have that, do not have the resources. Like my child's a special needs school, they're like, 8 in a class, and you've got 8 children, you've got like 4 members of staff, so it's more or less 2 to 1. And the other children who, it depends on the severity, where your child, they are what you call high functioning, so they will thrive better in a general needs school. And when that overload comes too much, they can take them away to that unit, so they have their time where they can have their sensory time. So it always has to be focused on the child's needs and not high. It's difficult to have high impacts on you and everybody else, but it's difficult to understand we're human beings to detract from that by higher impacts on you and your desires, because I want my child to be so and so. I want my child to be perfect. That's our dream. So sometimes in your desire for that, you're forgetting that you want your child, but your child needs are such that they need to be met in so and so setting.
Thanks, Lucy, for that. Basira, what experience have you had with regards to mainstream school and special needs school?
There are two sides. Number one, there are parents who are in denial, who don't want their children to go to special schools because they just feel there's nothing wrong, or I just want my child to be in a mainstream school. But then again, Where are the special schools that we're talking about?
Yeah.
These special schools that we want these kids to go to, where are they? Lagos State, they said they have 20-something inclusion units. I will not send my child to any of them. I won't. I would rather go to a mainstream school and find a teacher who's willing to work with me to help that child. What is the number of mainstream of special schools that we had? When I started this, I was in England, and someone close to me moved to Nigeria. That's the story of how this started. Someone close to me moved from England to Nigeria, and they were in a state that is not Lagos State, and they struggled to find a school for their child. They struggled. The first school they found, right, after being rejected by so many mainstream schools, the school they found was a school where you have mixed people. So, you know, it's those schools. I think I don't know if it's retarded they use, or they have a name, you know, like this discriminating name.
Wow.
They use. Anyway, they were referred to one of those schools, and the parent went there and said, it's not possible. There's no way I'm going to send my child to a school like this.
Yeah.
And then they kept searching, and they found a school that said, you know, we can work with children who have special needs. And one day they went to pick up this child from school. The parent was literally crying. The state that the child was met in. The child was dirty. The child hadn't been looked after. This is a quote unquote school that can cater to children with special needs. Eventually, they then moved this child, they then found a school. And this school said, we have no experience of working with children with special needs. However, we can work with you. So if we understand, they didn't know what autism was. They didn't know what any of those things were. But if we have, you know, if you show us how to work with this child, then we can try. And that was how they were able to work with this child. If you see this child now, you won't even know it's the same child that we're talking about. So my question is, how many special schools are there?
Yeah.
And these special schools, can they even truly meet the needs of these children? One of the things you read something in my when you were introducing me that my work, the doctorate work that I'm about to start is what models can we run in local primary schools and public schools that would ensure that children who are not in school can even get in school, because a lot of these children can do well in mainstream schools if we know how to help them and if we have the heart to help them. Because you will find people come and talk to you about how their kids or how they themselves have done well simply because schools that were not inclusive schools took a chance on them. They took a chance on them and said, look, I don't know what to do with you. However, if the parent is willing to work with me. So yes, I understand that there are people who don't have, who are in denial and don't want to send their kids to, you know, special schools because they feel like, how would people look at me? My child is going to a mainstream school, or you're trying to judge me by saying my child can access mainstream curriculum and now they have to do something much lower. Where is a child going to thrive? If you find a place that a child is going to thrive, put them there. But more importantly is that, look, find a school that is willing to work with you as a parent and willing to work with all the other practitioners to get the, because if you're waiting for special school,
you won't find it.
You won't find it. All right. Thank you for that.
How many?
I can imagine. Thank you for that, Basira. I think the final question from me is, obviously when I was doing my research regarding this topic, I noticed that most of the articles I've come across talked about medication. And one of the medication that was mentioned was risperidone, which is something I know is being sort of administered to people that have got mental health disorder. And I don't know if any of the children that we're talking about, using your children as an example, was there any point that you kicked against any medication? Was there any point that you actually researched and thought, well, medication is not for me? Or is there any certain food that kids are not supposed to have that sort of maybe amp them more? Or because I've spoken to a few parents that have said, well, medication did work for my child, and there was one that said, no, medication wasn't good. And I think there's a case at the moment where a woman is actually fighting with the NHS, where her son had a volatile outburst, and they came section this young boy, he was probably 12 or something, and he's been institutionalized at 17. This child has not seen his parents. So you can imagine why parents would be like, no, I don't want medication, because obviously it doesn't let this child thrive, and then sometimes the medication has actually worked. Side effect. Yeah, so I'll go to you first, Ethel. Is there any food or was there medication that you considered that worked for your child, or was there one that you actually said, no, I'm not doing this, given that you work within the hospital setting?
Yeah, the one you mentioned, because after 2 years when he was diagnosed ASD, the school I mentioned, the Catholic school, complained to high heaven so they can cope. You know, they start keeping evidences, oh yes, just to kick that child out of the school. Oh, he's not, his behavior, he's restless, he's this, that. So we had to go for behavioral assessment, and they then diagnosed him ADHD. So that was not good enough for them. They said, oh, they need medication for him to calm down while he's in school. I kicked against it. You know how NHS is, no, you can't just say no, you have to try it first. And I knew that it's not about because he can't communicate verbally, then his communication, verbal communication skills were really, really poor. So he had limited words. So out of frustration, he starts to headbutt, he starts to, you know how he fidget. So because of that, due to that, they say, oh no, he has to have medication to calm down. It's just that you guys are not patient enough. You're not listening to him. So even Ose, the sister, used to be some classes after his class. She would leave the class when she hears the brother and go and say, no, miss, you just have to say this, you just have to do this. And he would actually calm down.
Wait. So these people, they didn't know what on earth they were doing. At playtime, I had to stand next to my brother and take care of him instead of the actual teachers, because they had absolutely no clue on what to do. I mean, for me, I'm just a year older than him. Yeah. For a child who's 7, looking after a 6-year-old because who's past their 30s don't even want to listen on what to do. I mean, it's quite sad, really.
Yeah, they fed medication would be the answer. So they placed him on the medication. He became ×2 worse. He would hold his head. He was having constant headaches. So I just left it because our next review was about 5 weeks time. I didn't give it. After 2 days of administering that medication, and I noticed the mess it caused my child, I left the medication. I left them in the park the way it was. So when we got to the children clinic, I gave it to the doctor. I said, sorry, we couldn't. The look he gave me, because I know what I'm doing. If I reduce the medication, he would think, oh yes, she just doesn't want it. She's administered it. She doesn't. I showed him everything. I said it's not working. And the school actually said he's worse now. So they were, yeah. So they had to take that off. And I came across an article. My husband actually got it from US, and it says gluten and wheat does affect the brain, because with autistic children, their gut does not break down gluten and wheat properly. So there's a leak, and it goes into the blood and goes into the brain, and so it makes them hyper. And when did we stop Aaron from gluten? We stopped him
For a long time.
for a very long. Now he's the calmest. He's as calm as he's calmer than the girls. He's so calm. Yeah, and once he tastes gluten or wheat, we know
He's gone.
he starts to hum. We just know he's eating. Boy, so to him, it's So it's difficult. It's expensive. I went to the GP once and I said, see what I've tried. It's been about 5 years. It's not had gluten and wheat, and it's really working. So I think it was a student doctor. They gave me prescription to get the gluten-free product. And when I went back for the prescription, this middle-aged Englishman said, no, he hasn't got, is it celiac?
Yes, celiac.
You have to go test it. How? No. Gluten and there's no link between gluten and wheat. There's no link at all. It does not affect autism because they don't have these children. We deal with them. So because the NHS do not want to, support you, and I just said, tough, forget it. Since then, it's my child. If you were in Nigeria, wouldn't I do the same? So we've been purchasing this food for him. If he's writing his food list, he puts gluten-free bread, gluten-free. He knows. He knows. He doesn't. He can't. He doesn't have taste for the normal bread anymore, and he knows how it makes him feel when he has this with food and gluten food. So gluten, mothers out there, cut gluten out of your child's diet. Wheat out of your child's diet. Diet is the best treatment for autism. I'm telling you, diet. They don't sugar. You have to reduce sugar. Processed food. That's why Nigerians, when you see children with autism living in Nigeria, they manage better because it's organic food they eat. It's mostly organic food. Here it's mostly processed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Lucy, medication?
Yeah.
Yes, no.
It's going to be on a case by case basis. When you talk of medication, what kind of medication? If you're talking about things like risperidone, which is what you use for anxiety, and that would it changes your mood. So that would be if they're really hyperactive, where they're needing that to calm them down. So your parent has to. I think you have to make that judgment. I will be a little bit skeptical about giving my child, any, psychotropic drugs or anything along that line. In terms of my son, yes, he does use medication, not anything psychotropic like risperidone or something like that. It's for sleep. And when they first suggested that melatonin, so which is something we
produce anyway. Yeah,
is normally that makes you sleep. So what they say, what they've noticed from research is that a lot of people with autism is that they probably don't produce enough of it, and so that's why they have trouble either going to sleep or staying asleep. So first time I was struggling with it, and I went to the doctors, and that stereotype in my head, medication, what? No, that's fine, keep medication, no, don't want none of that. So I think I was doing, as you know, I was doing my master's program at the time. Did 1 year, and by the time I saw myself, you know what, I am so going to fail this course. I without sleep. It's not fair on him either. He's not getting sleep. We can go to bed about 8 o'clock. I've been with him in the room. 12 midnight, he's still trying to get to sleep. And when we went for our annual review, I thought, yeah, what was that medication you talking about again? So then he explained it to me. I talked about my concerns. He said, okay, look at it this way. Yes, in America, this is actually something that's sold across the counter, because in the UK, it's prescribed. So there's that feeling as if, oh, you're giving your child something really serious. And that it is Cicadin. It is actually something that your body produces naturally. So he said, there's no test to see if your body's producing it or not. What it is if your child takes a very small dose, if he takes it, if he then sleeps normally, then that tells you that he's deficient in it. If he takes it and it does not affect his sleep, that means no, melatonin that's not what was causing his sleep. So a small dose of it, so I gave that to him. Oh my God, he slept. He actually slept.
Wow.
So yeah, do use that. Try and have a break, maybe during holiday time, not give to him on the weekends. But if I know that by him not getting enough sleep, it is affecting him, then yes, I'll let him have that.
Okay,
So a
just
small amount
quickly, I would, Basira, just quickly, if you just kind
Yeah,
of give us a
so I just
perspective
wanted
on
to add
that.
a word of caution that
Yes.
it's good to put it out there that you're not medicating for autism, right? Because we already established that this is something to do with the way the person's brain develops. Now, it's possible that, you know, children experience some difficulties along the line, and a pediatrician might choose to medicate that particular difficulty. But it is not to say that, you know, they're trying to treat the autism, because that isn't something that you can treat. And again, the way these things affect kids differ. You can have a child who is doing well on a gluten-free diet, and then another child who isn't doing well when you when you take out gluten from the diet. You can have a child who's doing well on a casein-free diet, and another child who isn't doing well on a casein or lactose-free diet. So again, it varies for these kids. It's usually just good to have a balance. Yes, there are research, you know, there's been research in line with the relationship between the gut and the brain and the way children behave. There's a lot of research going on there, but I would say people should tread with caution when you go in that route. Have someone who is qualified and competent, particularly in a place like Nigeria. Find someone who's qualified and competent who can give you advice, nutritional advice in terms of, okay, try this. And if they're trying to introduce you to, you know, changing nutrition, they would help you so that you know how to ease into it. You don't just like pull something away from a child abruptly, or introduce the child something abruptly and then get the effects that was not intended. So I just say a word there, so people don't go away thinking, oh, I can get medication for autism, or I can get medication for this. It's possible to medicate maybe some difficulties that you're having, but don't just think that there's a medication out there, you know, that is going to make autism go away.
Thank you very much, Basirat. So I'm going to bring in Osed, because I know a lot of you might have been saying, oh, what's that young girl doing there, that very funky young looking girl? Okay, so Osed is Ethel's first daughter, and is Ethel's son, the second child that's got autism. So Osed is a young carer, okay, and in the UK that is known as someone who's not an adult that's having to care for or look after another person. So Osed is a young carer, and Osed won the Lammy, she was the second runner-up in the Lammy Awards in Lambeth. That's the local authority she lives in, for Young Carers Award. So well done to her.
Well done, Osed.
I would like Osed to tell us what's your experience about looking after a sibling with autism? What have you faced in school, in church, in the community? How has this been for you? What are the stereotypes, the labeling? Just talk to us. Go on, Osed.
I think the hardest part of it isn't even at home. It's when is outside. It's the schools. My primary school didn't help. My primary school I went to didn't help at all. I kind of got stigmatized as well because of it. Like it was recently I realized that I had trouble with my learning, so I just think it's a bit slower than other people. But my primary school didn't pick that up because they didn't really care about me as much because of my brother.
Wow.
So in primary school, I wasn't able to focus because I had a lot of anxiety when my brother was out. So let's say there was someone coming to like mow the lawn. I'll always be worried in case my brother wanted to run out to go and see like the tractor mowing the lawn. And that was mostly because the adults didn't know what they were doing. They didn't care about what they were doing. They were just incompetent. They didn't know how to deal. Not even like deal. They didn't know how to take care, because my brother's not someone to have to deal with. That's the thing. He's just someone who just needs a little extra attention. Yeah, and every child is different, and my brother just needs a little bit more of a different approach to him, and that's it. It was when my brother went to his second primary school. That was amazing. So I was going into secondary school. I remember one time I used to drop my brother off in a breakfast club, and the people there were always so nice. They always said hello to me. They would ask me how I was doing. They were always giving me advice as well on what works with him, so I can take with that home. So you just need to have the right people there to help you. Sent my brother secondary school, amazing, because they actually cared. That's the thing, they actually care. And then there's another issue with how people outside view you. I know that the best things you can think about this is always in a McDonald's. So when we were younger, there was a McDonald's. My brother, it was overstimulating. So he was having a breakdown. He's right there. He's listening to all of this. Yeah. He was having a breakdown. He was on the floor crying, and not one person actually thought, "Oh, do you need help with this?" They're just standing there, just staring in that kind of "I'm judging you" sort of way. And I was quite young back then, and it kind of put that sense in my mind that, oh, any little thing, I need to correct him. He can't really be himself when I'm out. It's not something I want to intentionally think about, but it's something that's always automatic. So when we're out, always make sure he's never.
She still gets anxious so much. Even
though he can't be near someone. He needs to be quiet. You have to put your hands by your side. All these kind of things because of that, like few experiences when I was younger. But like, what kind of gives me hope is also people in McDonald's. So there was one time that we were out, and she was going to go order something, and so because he was just humming a bit. Then there was one woman, because she noticed that said he had special needs. She said, "Oh, your brother's beautiful." So I said, "Oh, thank you." That moment was when it clicked in me that, oh, I don't need to be so uptight about this when I'm in public. So from then, I didn't really hold my brother's hand anymore. I let him walk by himself. If he actually touched someone, I was like, "Oh, sorry about that," and it's like we just moved away. I wasn't like over apologizing, you know. I'm just like, "Oh,
we used to do that a lot."
Like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. He's autistic. So I'm just like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that."
But now,
Also, it's also you have to. With me, it's also my friends. My friends are really supportive. They know what I'm going through. They even when I tell my brother not to do something, when my friends are like, "Oh, just leave him alone. What did he do? He's just living his life." You have a supportive system around you. If you don't have that, it's gonna break you into bits. Having the right people around you and being so lucky to have, because the awareness is there now more. So people are beginning to see the signs. When they see this, oh yeah, maybe that child. But before it was really bad, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh no, it was. We couldn't go to restaurants without holding him. We even had the latch where we'll tie on his hand and the adults. So he stays with us. Still the backpack. Yeah. You have it too. Lucy has it too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, Ose, thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your story.
You, Ose.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I'm glad that we can all laugh about it now, because these are very emotional things, what we've talked about today. And the mothers out there who are just getting the diagnosis of their children, and they're wondering, what am I going to do? Because this is not something you can take medication for and it goes. This is not something you can take antibiotics for and it goes. No, this is a lifelong thing that will continually be there.
You know? This is not something you pray away.
Yeah, it's not something you fast.
You don't pray away.
The fasting is, you know? So it's very interesting. And the good thing is, the other side of the coin is, this is not a poor man's sickness. Do you understand? It's not a poor man's sickness at all. It's no respecter of your social class, of your status or whatever. It comes just the way coronavirus did, right? It comes when it comes, okay? For example, I know your $10, the son of the family has autism, okay? And I know a few months back, one of the sisters put a post on Instagram where the child was compared to someone with a mental illness, okay? So again, it has to be differentiated. Autism is not mental illness, because people often confuse that with mental illness. And also, Copy also put something up on her page and celebrated her brother, and also said, my brother is autistic, he's special, and is God's gift to me. And I'm sure that's how you feel, Ose, and Lucy, your daughters as well, and Basiret as well. So the thing is, autism is not something, it doesn't, everybody has their lives, right? Okay, we haven't got autism, so we experience life in a different way. They have autism and they experience life in a different way. What's to say that the way we experience life is better than the way they experience life.
That's all they know. That's
You
all they
understand?
know.
Because for all we know, they could be looking at you and be like,
They'll be like,
why
are
are you
you
behaving
okay?
like that? You're not normal.
He does. He has that look sometimes. He does have that look sometimes. What's wrong with them? Why are they like this? He does.
So at the end of the day, you know, a lot of people out there, yeah,
Someone
exactly.
said special things are created in the minority. So maybe we
We are actually the problem.
Exactly. Do you understand? So at the end of the day, you know, I just wish that people out there, parents especially, okay, if you're a father, you're a mother, African, Caribbean, wherever you're from, Caucasian, wherever you're from, when you know that a child is autistic, when you know that a child has some form of disability, please do not stereotype. Okay,
Empathy.
do not stereotype. You have to put yourself in the position of that parent. You have to think, if this was my child, how would I like people to behave towards him? Okay, do not start saying to your son or your daughter or your children, don't talk to that child, don't go near that child, because number one, no matter how educated you think you are, that is a height of illiteracy. Okay, if you think that a child with autism can infect your child, come on now, there's something wrong with you up there. You are the problem. If you think a child with any other form of disability can affect your child to the point where you're telling your child not to play with that child, you need to go and check yourself. You are the problem we have in this country as a whole.
In this world.
Do you understand? You're the problem we have in this world, because we need to start learning to accept people for who they are, no matter the level of their disability. As a village should be able to raise a child. It should take it shouldn't only take a village to raise a child who is number one in everything, or very, very handsome child, or a child that is doing well. No, when the child is doing well, yes, raise the child as well. When the child is not doing well and that child needs love, also show that love, whether you're the parent of the child or not. Okay, you can be the change that this world needs, because when your child sees what you do, they would emulate what you do and they would learn from it. Okay, so it really hurts me out there that a child who has autism or any other form of disability will be in a class and everybody will be going to a birthday party and that child is not invited.
Yeah.
As a mother,
Ethel, we're gonna have a party. Yeah,
I understand.
We're gonna have a party.
Absolutely.
I know, Celia, you're trying to round up, because I just feel that this is, for the life of me, I didn't know this was happening, that kids are being excluded from birthday parties. There was an instant, I was in Nigeria, and I was at an amusement park, and this child was trying to buy cotton candy. What's that thing that candy floss? And the child was literally going for the candy floss, and people were scattering like, what's happening? So I went closer to the child and I was talking to her. Do you want candy floss? What color do you want? And the man looked at me and said, you don't live in this country. I go, sir, I live in this country. He goes, no, you don't live in this country, because no one has ever spoken to my child. So I'm thinking, really? I couldn't believe it. I was at my sister-in-law's party thing, and he goes, no, you don't live in this country. And I was like, yes, sir, I live in this country. He goes, no, man, you don't want to tell me you don't live, because no one speaks to my child. So my heart goes out to you, Ethel. Not like in any, we will have a party.
No, absolutely. Do you understand? Absolutely, because you're not just
Cecilia, really quickly, that people, I tell everyone who cares to listen to this, you are not free from the probability of having a disability until you're dead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Every human being should take that away. Until you're dead, there's still a probability that you could end up having a disability. It might not be developmental. The people who have accidents and then they end up on wheelchairs. And in their lives, they were okay. And all of a sudden, they start to see what life looks like. So until you're dead, that's all. Be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice.
That's it. People. Yeah. That's it. In Benin, okay, in Benin, they say, no it means you that haven't lived the whole of your life, you're laughing at a blind person, okay? Because you'll never know. Just as you walk off, bam, something will enter your eye and you will go blind. So we need to be it's true. You need to be very sensitive. I'm warning the parents out there. I am warning the parents. I'm speaking to the parents out there, because it's what you put in, it's what you show your children, it's what you teach your children, to show compassion to others. That's what they will emulate, that's what they will learn and pass on to their children. So please, when you see a child that is different from your own, do not discriminate. Love them just the way you would like others to love yours. Because God forbid you have an accident tomorrow, your child can end up in a wheelchair, your child can start drooling, and your child will be the ones other people will not want their children to be near. So seriously, it's really annoying, because I can just imagine how they will invite everybody and they will not invite your child. It's really, really demoralizing. You have to be a very strong person not to break down with that, with things like that happening. And I know there are a lot of children in Nigeria, especially because in the UK we know the signs and you get your diagnosis. But I'm very sure that in Nigeria, a lot of these sort of symptoms and signs, they will just say, I beg you, the child is just slow. And a lot of children are not diagnosed. And a lot of children that even have autism without the diagnosis, they don't even make it to school. Do you understand? They don't even make it to school. They are just at home and their families are hiding them because they don't want them to bring shame upon the family. So Nigerian government, we need to do better. You know, we need to do better than we're doing now. It's really annoying when you see that that country has a lot of money, they have resources, but people are just lining their pockets and they're not spending it in the citizens of that country.
And it's expensive. To find therapy is expensive. Therapy is expensive. Everything is expensive. People are poor. They haven't eaten. They don't know, they don't know what the next meal is going to come from. And you're asking them to come and have therapy sessions that cost maybe 80K per session, 20K per session, 50K per session. How are they going to do it?
Anyway, you know what, guys, thank you so much for coming. Basirat, Lucy, Ethel, thank you so much for coming to share your story. We really appreciate it. Ose, thank you so much as well for coming on.
We do
not take your story for granted. I know this is going to be by far one of the longest videos we have done on Trash It, but you know what, it's worth it. Do you understand? If you feel you can stay, how many hours it is to watch, good. If you feel you cannot, good. Okay, but we will continue to do.
You can break it down. Watch 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
Exactly. We will continue to do videos like this because that's what we do in Trash It. We go to the heart of the community and we trash topics that resonate within homes, within families. It's not all about celebrity here and there. No. So thank you so much for coming on, and we really appreciate your input as usual.
Thank you for having us.
A lovely co-host. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll see. And just before you go, on Saturday morning at 9:30, our videos always premiere on our YouTube channel. So please, I'll ask the three of you, please try and be there on Saturday morning when this video premieres, because a lot of mothers might be there, fathers, they will want to ask questions. How did you manage this and how did you cope with that? So please try and be there so you can help people. Okay, because I know
how does the premiere work?
So just go to our YouTube channel on Saturday morning. You would see this topic there. Just click on it. At least try and be there from 9 o'clock or 9:15 because we go live at 9:30. Okay, and it would or you can also set a reminder as well. Okay, and it will be there for you. And you invite your friends to join as well. And so I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. This was
good. Bye. Next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye.